So our topic is decision making. So when we say managers or management, one of their major functions or major role is to make decisions. They need to make sound decisions that will benefit the organization and the employees and the entire organization. So we need to discuss decision-making process. So for an introduction, this lesson will discuss about the decision-making of a manager. This also help learners to identify if they are good in making decisions. Why is decision-making so important? Simply because when we do or when we make decisions, that decisions can affect someone or can affect the entire organization. So decision making is very, very important because if uh, if one decision of the management is bad, it can backfire to the organization. It can create problems for the organization. So, as a content, managers are constantly called upon to make decisions in order to solve problems. Decision making and problem solving are ongoing processes of evaluating situations or problems, considering alternatives, making choices, and following them up with the necessary actions. Sometimes the decision-making process is extremely short and mental reflection is essentially instantaneous. In other situations, the process can drag on for weeks or even months. The entire decision-making process is dependent upon the right information being available to the right people at the right times. So, actually, every one of us make decisions on a daily basis, di ba? Simple lang na. Halin sa kung anong oras ka mabugtaw, ano ang himuon mo pagabugtaw mo, ano ang himuon mo sa adlaw na, diin ka maglakat kung may laktan ka, ano ubrahon mo. Those were actually already forms of decisions, personal decisions. However, managers have a bigger role or bigger responsibility or heavier responsibility when it comes to decision making because their decisions can affect uh, a person, a department, or the entire organization. So ang major role ni manager is to make decisions which will solve the problems. Because simple na, di ba, bagay nila, pag once nga na-overcome mo na ang isa ka problema, may mag-abot naman yung isa ka problema. So the, the, the basis of having good management is to overcome all of those obstacles that will be presented to them. Of course, they need to make sound decisions. Kaya nga sinabi dito, the entire decision-making process is dependent upon the right information being available to the right people, right information, right people at the right time. Those are three qualities that are three essential things needed for managers to make sound decision. Right information, right data, kung ano ba ang problema, ano ang mga facts, syempre right people, kung sino ba ang dapat mag-decide, sino dapat storyahon, at the right time. Kay kung example, nag-abot ang information, dugay, so dugay na sulbad ang problema. So those three qualities, those three right things should be available to make a sound decision. So decision making is the process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and assessing alternative resolutions. Using a step-by-step decision-making process can help you make more deliberate, thoughtful decisions by organizing relevant information and defining alternatives. So decision making is a process. Okay? Ang ma-remember mo gid sa decision making is if you remember sa inyong mathematics, tong elementary, di ba? May arasang problem solving. Steps on problem solving. So simply, similar to that, yung steps to problem solving is also the decision making process. So what is the decision making process? Step 1, we need to identify the problem or a problem. So we need to determine kung ano ang problema, kung may problema ba, ano ang problema, ano ang nag-cause sa problema. So we need to understand the characteristics of problems. A problem becomes a problem when a manager becomes aware of it. Tama? Di ba? Kung hindi balance ang manager na may problema, hindi siya problema because hindi siya aware na may problema. That is why it is also the responsibility and the role of the employees to tell the management that there is a problem. Kasi kung wala sa magambal sila sa problema sa idalong, like for example, may problema ang mga employees, hindi mabalance ang mga tao sa babaw or sa management na may problema. Another characteristics of problem is there is pressure to solve the problem. Kailangan sulbaron ang problema. Kaya kung hindi magaling kailangan sulbaron ang problema, hindi mo siya pagproblemahon. Simply. The manager must have the authority, information, or resources needed to solve the problem. Diba? Dapat may authority. Hindi, example, HR siya, tapos may problema sa operations. So, syempre, ang mag-deal nga, ang tamang tao mag-decide on that problem sa operations is the operations manager. So, simple as that. Step 2. Identifying decision criteria. Decision criteria are factors that are important to resolving the problem, such as costs that will be incurred or the investment required, and the risk likely to be encountered, the chance of failure, and the outcomes that are desired. So these are the criteria. When we say criteria, ito yung mga bagay that we need to consider before reaching a decision. So cost. Pila ang magastos sang kumpanya para masulbad ng problema nga na. The best answer, the best proportion is walang sang gasto. So that will be great. Pero there are a lot of problems that needs to be solved that you will be incurring costs. Okay? This, sa amusin ang solusyon, pila ang tendency or pila ang percentage nga hindi maging successful na siya. Nga hindi ma-solve ang problem. Or worst case scenario, mas makadugang pa siya sa problema. And lastly, what is the outcome or what are the outcomes that are desired? Ano ang mga gustong results na makita? Step 3 is allocating weights to the criteria. Decision criteria are not of equal importance, so assigning a weight to each item places the items in the correct priority order of their importance in the decision-making process. Parehas ng bala na siya sa let's say, grading system. Pila ka percent ang exam, pila ka percent ang quiz, pila ka percent ang attendance, pila ka percent ang mga schoolwork. So, ning apat nga ni, actually, are the criteria for your grades. Diba? Pero pila ka percent. Tung percentage, that is what we call weights. So, for example, ang exam is, let's say, 40%. Ang attendance is 10%. Ang quiz is 20%. Ang schoolwork is 30%. So these percentage are now the weights to the criteria. Now, step 4 is developing alternatives. Identifying viable alternatives. Alternatives are listed without evaluation that can resolve the problem. So what do we mean by alternatives? These are, kumbaga pa daw, options that can solve the problem. So option A, alternative A, option 1, option 2, option 3, and option 4. Step 5, analyzing alternatives. So appraising each alternative's strengths and weaknesses. An alternative's appraisal is based on its ability to resolve the issues related to the criteria and criteria weight. So this one is actually very used sa strategic management. So in strategic management, you will learn now yung mga SWOT analysis, yung mga ano pa ba? SWOT, ito kasi yung pinaka-common na analysis in terms of options or alternative. What is the strength of that alternative? What is the weakness of that alternative? What is the opportunity of that alternative? What is the threat to that alternative? So SWOT analysis is one way of analyzing alternatives. And then selecting an alternative. After mo siya ma-analyze, ang mga alternatives or ang mga options, we need now to choose the best alternative. So kung meron kang 4 na option, 1 to 4, diin sa 4 niya na ang pinaka-naming option. And then you need to select that one. The alternative with the highest total weight is chosen. And after mo siya yung pili, of course, you need to implement the alternative. Kasi useless naman kung nag-SWOT analysis ka tapos hindi mo lang gali i-implement, di ba? As talaga ito siya sa papel. So putting the chosen alternative into action, conveying the decision to and gaining commitment from those who will carry out the alternative. And then evaluating decision effectiveness. The soundness of the decision is judged by its outcomes. So how effectively was the problem resolved by outcomes resulting from the chosen alternative? If the problem was not resolved, what went wrong? Of course, ito na yung tinatawag natin na feedbacking. After may problem, nagipangitaan sa mga possible solutions, nagpilit ka sa solution. Now, we need to evaluate kung atong ginpilit ang solusyon, nagsulbar gid ba sa problema or wala. Kung wala siya nagsulbar sa problema, anong nagtabo, anong rason niya wala? And then we will again go back to step 1. We need to get to find possible other alternatives or other options. So decisions making biases and errors. Of course, we as humans are naturally biased and we are not perfect. That is why we do errors. So what are the biases and errors in decisions making? We have the heuristics, overconfidence bias, immediate gratification bias, anchoring effect, selective perception bias, and confirmation bias. I will not explain it one by one because these are just categorical definitions. Define lang ang each biases. But the point is, we need to overcome biases and we need to lessen errors. That is the main point. So decision-making styles, we have the directive style, analytic style, conceptual style, and behavioral style. So in directive style decision-making has low tolerance for ambiguity and is rational. So when a manager spots the dirt on the window and orders the cleaner to clean the window now, that is a directive style decision making. The cleaner has to follow the instruction and does not need to ask for clarifications. Kumbaga pa daw director, obrato. So that's directive style. Analytic style decision making has high tolerance for ambiguity and is rational. The decision-making style is due to uncertainty and lack of information. For example, when the management is discussing about acquisition, they do not make decision fast. They want to have more information before they make the major acquisition. They have to find answers to many what-if questions. So, from the word analytic, coming from the root word analysis, they need to analyze each decisions to be made. Kailangan especially dito sa example, major acquisition. So maybe acquisitions like, let's say, 500K to 2 millions of pesos that is needed. So kailangan talaga thorough analysis of the possible solutions. And they need to answer, what if what if maguba ni siya after 2 months? What if may maguba nga pyesa di tabaklod? What if ang delivery? What if kailangan siya sa specific room temperature? So they need to answer those questions. Conceptual style decision-making is characterized by high tolerance for ambiguity and is intuitive in nature. This kind of decision-making is for a long term and subjected to changes. So it is for the long term. So as the day goes by or as the time goes by, pwede nila i-adjust ang solution nito to adapt to changes. Subject to changes. So pwede siya islan. Concept lang siya. Kumbaga pa, it is a long-term view. So kung long-term view siya, of course, itong mga short-term, example, 10 years siya ang solution. So every year, they need to adapt for certain changes. And then the behavioral style. Behavioral style decision-making has low tolerance for ambiguity and is intuitive. The manager possesses behavioral style decision-making, will engage in team discussion. He is responsive to the mood of the team members. He makes decisions based on what feels right and what will motivate the team members to perform. The decision is communicated clearly and leaves no room for doubt. So basically, this is just for a type of decision-making na gina-consider ang team. So, ginamiting anay ang certain group of people or a certain department in order for you to brainstorm what will be done. So, that's the end of our discussion regarding decision making. So, thank you for listening, everyone.